Caleb Moore had lived alone on his wide, quiet ranch for many years. The land stretched far in every direction, with golden fields, a small creek, and a long fence line that needed fixing every other week. Most days he worked from sunrise to sunset, checking cattle, repairing barns, and tending his horses. Life was simple, peaceful, and silent. He had grown used to that silence, even though a small part of him sometimes wished for a friendly voice in the evenings. But he had never imagined that his quiet life would change in one single moment. It happened on a warm evening near the end of summer. The sun had just slipped behind the hills, leaving a soft orange glow in the sky. Caleb was riding his horse back toward the barn after checking the last grazing herd. He expected to finish the day like usual, unsaddle the horse, wash his face with well water, and heat up beans on the stove. But when he reached the barn, he pulled the reins and froze. 3 young women were standing near the wooden posts, dust all over their clothes and fear in their eyes. They looked tired, as if they had walked a long distance. One held a small bag close to her chest. Another kept glancing over her shoulder as if someone might appear out of the shadows at any moment. The youngest tried to stand straight, but her legs shook. Caleb slowly stepped down from his horse. He didn't speak right away because he didn't want to scare them. His quiet voice finally broke the silence as he asked, "Are you 3 all right?" The tallest one stepped forward. Her dark hair was tied back loosely, and her expression held both courage and exhaustion. We need a place to rest for one night," she said softly. Caleb studied them carefully. They didn't look like troublemakers. They looked lost, worried, frightened. "You're welcome to rest here," he replied, still calm but alert. "I don't have much, but I can offer food and shelter." The 3 exchanged quick glances, grateful yet unsure if they should trust him. The tall one nodded slowly. "Thank you." Caleb guided them toward the ranch house, walking ahead so they wouldn't feel threatened. As they followed, the youngest tripped slightly. Caleb turned and offered a hand, but she shook her head shyly and regained her balance. It was clear they had been through something difficult. Inside the house, the air smelled of bread and wood. Caleb lit a lantern and set it on the table. The warm glow softened their expressions. And he finally saw their faces clearly. They were sisters. Anyone could see it. The tall one, who seemed to be around 21, carried responsibility in her eyes. The middle sister, around 19, looked gentle and quiet, as if she rarely spoke unless needed. The youngest, maybe 17, had a spark of nervous energy but kept close to the older 2. Caleb brought out water and bread. The sisters ate slowly, careful and polite, as if they hadn't eaten properly in days. After a few minutes, the middle sister whispered something to the oldest one, and the oldest nodded before turning to Caleb. "My name is Mara," she said. She placed a hand on the shoulder of the quiet middle sister. "This is Lena," she gestured to the youngest, "and this is Eva." After a small pause, she added in a softer voice, "We didn't mean to bring trouble." Caleb shook his head. "You didn't bring trouble. You brought yourselves. There's a difference." The girls exchanged another set of glances, this time softer, almost relieved. He poured them more water and said, "You don't have to tell me anything unless you want to. You can rest here safely." For a long moment, no one spoke. The lantern flickered. A faint breeze pushed against the house. Caleb waited patiently. Finally, Mara took a deep breath. "We left home," she said quietly. "Our father, he was trying to force us into marriages we didn't want." Caleb did not push for details. He simply nodded, letting her speak at her own pace. "He had already arranged things," Mara continued. "He said it didn't matter what we felt about it. He only cared about his own plans." Her voice wavered. But she kept talking. "We knew if we stayed we would lose our freedom. So we ran. Lena lowered her head at the memory, and Ava hugged herself tightly, as if trying to hide from something that still scared her. We didn't plan to come here, Mara said honestly. We were just trying to get far away. But when we saw your ranch light from the hill, we thought maybe we could ask for help. Caleb listened silently. Every word told him the same thing. They were desperate, but brave. You did the right thing coming here, he said gently. No one will harm you under my roof. Ava finally looked up at him. For the first time, he saw hope in her eyes. She asked in a soft voice, "Are you sure?" Caleb nodded. "I'm sure." He showed them a small guest room at the back of the house. It wasn't fancy, just 2 beds, a quilt, and a wooden chair. But the moment the sisters saw it, their shoulders softened with relief. Mara helped Lena sit down, and Ava placed their small bag on the floor. As Caleb stepped away to give them privacy, Mara quietly followed him back into the hallway. She seemed unsure whether she should speak, but then she leaned closer and whispered, "They're both my sisters. Please protect them." Caleb looked into her tired eyes. She wasn't asking for comfort or gifts. She was asking for safety. He understood that. "I will," he answered firmly. "You're all safe here." Her eyes filled with gratitude, and she returned to the room, closing the door softly behind her. Caleb stayed awake longer than usual that night. He sat by the kitchen window, listening for any unusual sounds outside. Hoofbeats, footsteps, anything. He didn't know who might come looking for the sisters, but he felt a strong sense of responsibility. He didn't know them well yet, but their fear was real. Their story was real. He couldn't turn away from that. As the moon rose, casting pale light across the ranch, Caleb reflected on how strange the evening had been. Just hours ago, his world had been the usual quiet one. Now 3 sisters were sleeping in his guest room, trusting him with their safety. He felt something shift inside him, something protective, something steady. After a long while, he finally stood, checked the locks on the doors, and made sure the horses were calm in the barn. He walked once more around the yard, scanning the dark landscape for any signs of danger. The night stayed still. Only when he was absolutely certain everything was safe did he return inside and rest. But even as he lay down, he knew the ranch would not be the same tomorrow. Their presence had already changed the silence in ways he couldn't explain. And though he did not know what the next day would bring, he knew one thing clearly. He would keep his promise. The sisters were safe with him, and he intended to make sure they stayed that way. The next morning, sunlight slowly spread across the ranch, turning the fields golden and warm. Caleb woke before dawn like he always did, but today felt different. He moved quietly so he wouldn't disturb the sisters, who had finally fallen into peaceful sleep after what seemed like days of fear and running. As he stepped outside, the air carried the soft smell of dew, and the sky was still painted with early morning colors. He fed the horses, checked the barns, and made sure everything around the ranch was safe. Even though nothing looked out of place, Caleb remained alert. He knew that people who controlled others often didn't give up easily, and he didn't want trouble arriving at his door, especially not while the sisters were under his protection. When he returned to the house, he heard soft footsteps inside. Eva was in the kitchen, rubbing her eyes as she looked around shyly. She seemed younger in the bright morning light, with her hair mussed from sleep. "Good morning," Caleb said gently, not wanting to startle her. Eva blinked and smiled a little. "Good morning. I didn't expect you to be up already." "I always start before sunrise," he replied with a small smile. "Did you sleep all right?" She nodded quickly. "Better than we have in many days." Lena soon appeared as well, quiet as always. She stood close to Ava as if making sure her younger sister felt safe. Mara came last, her expression calmer but still holding that careful alertness of someone who had been responsible for too long. "I hope you three rested well," Caleb said. Mara nodded. "We truly did. Thank you." Caleb stepped aside so they could wash their faces and freshen up. When they returned, he set bread, butter, and warm milk on the table. The girls sat together, eating slowly but more comfortably than the night before. "This place is beautiful," Lena whispered, looking out at the fields. It was the first thing she said that morning. Caleb glanced out the window. "It's quiet, but it's home." Eva smiled wider this time. "It feels safe." That simple word, safe, hit Caleb deeply. He didn't reply, but he felt a new sense of purpose settle inside him like a steady flame. After breakfast, Eva asked, "Can we help with something? We want to." Caleb shook his head at first. "You're guests. You should rest." But Mara gently insisted, "We don't want to sit and worry. Helping will make us feel useful." Caleb saw the honesty in her eyes. They weren't looking for comfort. They wanted to heal. So he agreed, giving them small tasks. Eva helped feed the chickens, Lena helped fold laundry, and Mara assisted him in sorting tools in the barn. Throughout the day, Caleb noticed how easily the sisters blended into the rhythm of ranch life. Their laughter slowly returned, light and soft. Eva chased a runaway chicken, making Lena giggle. Mara dusted off old shelves with determined focus. The quiet ranch, which had long been filled only with the sounds of nature, now held warm voices. But even while helping, the sisters kept glancing toward the road, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. Caleb saw their unease and understood. During midday, as they sat under the shade of a tree, Caleb asked softly, "Has someone been following you?" Mara hesitated, then nodded faintly. "We're not sure. When we left home, our father sent 2 men to bring us back. We managed to avoid them, but they might still be looking." Caleb felt a heaviness settle inside him. He looked at them seriously. "If anyone comes here with bad intentions, they won't get past me." Lena folded her hands nervously. "We don't want you to get in trouble because of us." Caleb shook his head slowly. "Trouble doesn't matter. People do what's right when it needs to be done." Eva smiled softly. "You're kind, Mr. Caleb." "Just Caleb," he corrected gently. The afternoon passed peacefully. The sisters explored the garden, the barn, and the small corral. They were curious, careful, and thankful for everything Caleb offered. For the first time in a long while, they felt hope instead of fear. When the sun began to lower, Caleb saddled his horse and told the sisters he needed to ride into town for supplies. Mara looked worried. "Will you be safe?" He gave a reassuring nod. "Town is quiet. I'll be quick." As he rode into town, he felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. The sisters were depending on him, and he couldn't let them down. Once in town, Caleb stopped at the general store. The shopkeeper, Mr. Reed, greeted him with a familiar nod, but quickly added, "Heard some strangers pass through yesterday. Looked like they were asking about 3 girls. Caleb froze. "3 girls?" Reed nodded. "Tall man, rough look. He asked if anyone had seen 3 young women traveling together. Didn't say why, but he looked angry." Caleb kept his voice calm, though his heartbeat grew tight. "Did anyone say they saw them?" "No," Reed answered. "Folks here don't trust strangers. No one said a word." Caleb paid for his supplies, but his mind was racing. Someone was searching for Mara, Lena, and Eva. Someone determined. As he rode back toward the ranch, he kept scanning the road, his eyes sharp and protective. The sisters had barely begun to feel safe. He couldn't let fear return to them. When he reached his property, Eva was waiting at the gate, worry written across her face. "You took longer than we thought." "Everything's fine," Caleb said, giving her a calm smile. I just had a few extra chores in town. Ava sighed with relief and ran to tell the others. Caleb took a deep breath. He didn't want to scare them unnecessarily, so he kept the news quiet for the moment. Inside the house, Mara stepped closer to him. "Thank you for coming back." Caleb met her eyes. "I told you I wouldn't leave you all alone." That evening, the atmosphere felt warm again. Ava told a funny story from their childhood, making Lena laugh softly. Mara cooked simple soup, and Caleb helped set the table. They ate together like a small family, comfortable and calm. But beneath the peace, Caleb sensed something growing inside the sisters. Trust. A deep trust. Not just because he had taken them in, but because he treated them as individuals, not burdens. He didn't question their choices, didn't judge their past, and didn't demand explanations. He simply offered kindness. After dinner, Caleb stepped outside to think. The moon was rising slowly, bright and round. He could hear the sisters talking inside, their voices soft and warm. He imagined how cold and frightening their journey must have been before reaching his ranch. Mara came outside quietly, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. She stood beside him, looking up at the moonlit sky. "I still can't believe we're safe," she said softly. "It feels unreal." "You deserve safety," Caleb replied. "Everyone does." She turned to him, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and a hint of emotion she didn't dare name. "You don't know what it means to us." Caleb looked back at the house where Lena and Eva were cleaning dishes together, talking gently. The sisters seemed at peace, something they probably hadn't felt in a long time. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," Caleb said. Mara's lips trembled slightly, not from sadness but from relief she didn't know how to express. "Thank you, truly." As she returned inside, Caleb felt a strange warmth in his chest. He knew their arrival had changed the ranch. It had changed him, too. But he also knew their father, or whoever he sent, might still be searching. The peace they had found was fragile, and protecting it would take courage. Caleb was ready for that. He had already made up his mind. He would not let fear return to the sisters' lives. He would stand between them and any danger that tried to enter the ranch, because their trust meant something to him, something deep, steady, and impossible to ignore. The next morning arrived quietly, but something in the air felt different. Caleb woke early, as always, but his steps carried a new, careful tension. He checked the barns, the gates, and the horses with more attention than usual. Even the smallest sound made him turn his head. The peaceful ranch still looked safe, but Caleb trusted his instincts. They were warning him that something was coming. Inside the house, the sisters were finishing breakfast. Mara stirred the pot on the stove, Lena sliced bread, and Eva hummed softly as she set the table. They looked calm, yet Caleb knew they were still carrying the fear they had lived with for so long. He didn't want to bring that fear back, not ever. When they sat down to eat, Caleb finally spoke. "I want to talk to you all about something." All three sisters paused, their eyes turning toward him with curiosity and a bit of worry. "While I was in town yesterday," Caleb said slowly, "someone was asking questions. A man. He wanted to know if anyone had seen 3 young women traveling together." Ava's hands froze on the table. Lena's breath caught. Mara tightened her grip on the spoon. "Was it him?" Lena whispered. Caleb nodded once. "Maybe. The shopkeeper said the man looked angry. I thought you should know." For a long moment, the sisters said nothing. Ava's lips trembled, and Lena lowered her head, squeezing her hands together. Mara stared into the distance, trying to hold herself together. Caleb leaned forward slightly. "Listen to me. No one said anything to him. No one knows you're here. And even if they did, he would not step foot on this ranch without facing me first." Mara looked at him with worried eyes. We didn't want to bring danger into your life. You've already done so much. You didn't bring danger, Caleb replied calmly. You brought honesty. You trusted me. And I'm not going to walk away from that. Ava wiped her eyes. Why are you so good to us? Caleb hesitated, searching for the right words. Because you deserve kindness. That's all. The sisters exchanged a silent glance, one filled with gratitude, fear, and something deeper that none of them could fully express. After breakfast, the mood felt heavier. The sisters still tried to help with chores, but their movements were slower. Their eyes drifted toward the road every few minutes. Caleb pretended not to notice, but he kept watch from a quiet distance. Around noon, while Caleb was fixing a fence post, he heard hoofbeats far off in the distance. Slow, heavy, determined. He straightened immediately. Mara came running from the garden. Did you hear that? Caleb nodded and walked toward the edge of the property. The figure on horseback grew clearer, a tall man with a stern posture and hard expression. Even from far away, Ava gasped softly. That's him, she whispered. That's our father. Caleb's jaw tightened. The man rode closer until he reached the gate. He didn't offer a polite greeting or a friendly smile. He stared at Caleb with cold, demanding eyes. You the owner of this ranch? The man asked sharply. I am, Caleb replied, calm but steady. I'm looking for 3 girls, the man said. They're my daughters. They ran from home. I want them back. Caleb didn't step aside. If they ran, they must have had a reason. It's none of your business what reason they had, the man snapped. They're mine, and you don't want to stand in my way. The anger in his voice didn't shake Caleb. He kept his voice level. They're not objects. They're people. And if they left because they were scared, then I'm not letting them go back. The man narrowed his eyes. Are you hiding them? Caleb didn't answer directly. I'm protecting them. The father leaned forward on his saddle, his tone turning sharp and aggressive. You listen to me. Those girls belong under my authority. I already arranged marriages for 2 of them. Men who paid good money. Caleb cut him off, his voice firm. You had no right to make decisions for their lives without their consent. The man scowled. I'm their father. I make decisions for them. Not anymore, Caleb replied. The father's hands clenched around the reins. You're making a mistake, cowboy. Caleb stepped closer to the gate. If you want to fight, you won't win it here. Not today. Not ever. Leave. Behind Caleb, the sisters had stepped outside quietly, though he didn't see them yet. They stood near the porch, trembling, but they were watching. Mara whispered to Lena and Ava. Stay behind me. Their father finally noticed them and pointed angrily. You 3, come here right now. None of the sisters moved. Instead, Mara raised her voice, shaking but brave. We will not go with you. We will not return to that house. Her father's face twisted with frustration. I am your father. You obey me. Lena stepped forward a little, surprising even Mara. We are not going back. You never treated us kindly. Ava's voice broke as she said, We're finally safe. Their father glared at them, then at Caleb. You think this cowboy will protect you forever? You think he can keep you hidden? You're making fools of yourselves. Caleb didn't raise his voice. He simply said, Leave. The man stared at Caleb for a long, tense moment. He seemed to realize something, that Caleb would not lose this standoff, that the cowboy wasn't someone to push around. Without another word, the man yanked the reins and turned his horse around. As he rode away, dust rising behind him, the sisters watched with shaky breaths. Caleb didn't move until the man disappeared beyond the distant hills. Only then did he turn toward the girls. Ava started crying first, not from sadness but from relief. Lena hugged her quickly, trying to calm her. Mara walked toward Caleb, her steps slow, emotional, unsure. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "Yes," Caleb said softly. "I did." "You risked everything for us," she said, tears filling her eyes. "No one has ever stood up for us like that." Caleb met her gaze. "You shouldn't have had to run. You shouldn't have been afraid. And you definitely shouldn't be forced into lives you don't choose." Ava wiped her tears as she approached. "We thought he would take us back." "He won't," Caleb said firmly. "As long as you're here, no one will harm you." The sisters stood silently, overwhelmed. The fear that had held them for so long seemed to lift like a heavy blanket slowly being pulled away. That evening, the ranch felt different. The air felt cleaner. The sky looked wider. The setting sun cast warm orange light across the fields, and for the first time, the sisters breathed freely. The three of them decided to cook a warm meal to show their gratitude. Mara chopped vegetables, Lena stirred the pot, and Ava set the table with extra care. Caleb watched them quietly, noticing the harmony they shared. They were sisters who depended on each other deeply, each one strong in her own way. After dinner, they sat outside for a while. The night breeze was cool. The moon slowly rose, shining brightly over the ranch. The land looked peaceful once more. Lena whispered, "I can't believe it's over." Mara replied gently, "For the first time, we get to choose what happens next." Caleb leaned against the porch rail. "You're safe now. Your father won't return anytime soon." Ava looked at him with soft eyes. "We trust you completely." Mara stepped closer to Caleb. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something she hadn't dared to feel until now. "You saved us today," she said softly. "Not just with your strength, but with your heart." Caleb felt warmth rise in his chest. He didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded. The sisters stood together under the moonlight, and the night carried a feeling of something new, hope, freedom, and a bond forming between them and the man who had chosen to protect them without expecting anything in return. The danger had passed, and now something gentle and unexpected was beginning. The days that followed felt gentle, almost like the ranch itself was breathing easier after the tense encounter. The three sisters moved through their chores with lighter steps, their laughter returning brighter each day. Caleb noticed the change immediately. The fear that once sat in their eyes had softened into calmness. They spoke more freely, smiled more easily, and began to enjoy simple things again. Sunlight on the fields, warm meals, quiet evenings on the porch. Caleb watched all of this with a quiet heart. He had never expected his ranch to become a home for anyone but himself, yet he now found himself hoping the sisters would stay. Something in their presence had awakened a warmth that he hadn't felt in years. The house no longer felt empty. The ranch no longer felt silent. It felt alive. One morning, as Caleb fixed a broken gate, he noticed Ava walking toward him with a basket. Her cheerful steps carried the morning sun with them. "We brought you breakfast," she said proudly. Lena and Mara followed, bringing fresh bread and milk. They placed the food beside him and sat on the fence watching him work. "You don't have to bring me breakfast out here," Caleb said with a small smile. Ava shook her head. "We want to. You've done so much for us," Lena added softly. "We enjoy helping you." Mara looked at the wooden post Caleb was repairing. "You work too hard, Caleb," he shrugged. "Work keeps the ranch running." Mara studied him closely. "You keep us running." Caleb paused at her words. He wasn't used to hearing such things, and he felt something warm inside. He tried to hide his emotion by adjusting the wire on the gate. But the sisters exchanged a knowing smile. They understood more than he realized. After breakfast, the sisters spent the day cleaning the house, sewing torn clothes, and tending to the garden. Caleb joined them after finishing his chores, and together they sat on the porch during the afternoon. Ava played a simple tune on a small wooden whistle she had found in her bag. Lena watched the sky quietly. Mara helped Caleb sharpen his tools, her hands steady and confident. The sisters were no longer guests. They were part of the ranch now. One evening, Caleb decided to teach the sisters how to ride the horses. Ava was the most excited. She ran toward the corral like a young foal, full of energy. Lena was nervous, hesitant to get on a horse, but Caleb guided her gently, reassuring her with patience. Mara learned quickly, sitting confidently in the saddle and smiling as the horse walked steady laps around the corral. "You make it look easy," Caleb told her. Mara laughed softly. "Maybe it's because you're a good teacher." The moment felt easy, warm. The sun dipped lower, turning the sky into shades of orange and gold. The sisters looked peaceful, their hair catching the evening light, and Caleb felt a deep sense of pride watching them grow stronger, freer, and happier each day. Later that night, after they finished cleaning up the dishes, Ava whispered something to Lena, who turned red and looked down shyly. Mara listened, then came to Caleb outside where he was checking the horses one last time before bed. "Caleb," she began softly, "can we talk?" He nodded and waited. Mara took a slow breath. "Do you want us to stay here? On the ranch?" Her voice held uncertainty, as if she feared the answer. Caleb met her eyes. "I do." Mara swallowed, her eyes glistening. "We have nowhere else to go, but even if we did, I think—" She hesitated. "I think we'd choose to stay." Caleb felt his heart beat a little faster. "I'd like that." Mara smiled, small, genuine, fragile. She stepped back toward the house, but not before whispering, "Good night, Caleb." That night, Caleb lay awake for a long time. He thought about the sisters, their bravery, their kindness, their trust. He realized something important. He wasn't just protecting them anymore. He cared for them, deeply. Not in a selfish or demanding way, but in a quiet way that felt like respect, admiration, and gratitude all woven together. The next few days strengthened that feeling. The sisters continued to help with the ranch, growing more confident. They laughed often, sometimes teasing each other playfully. They shared stories from their childhood, dreams of the future, hopes they had once been afraid to speak aloud. One evening, Lena said softly, "I never thought life could feel peaceful." Ava added with excitement, "I never thought life could feel fun." Mara looked at Caleb and whispered, "I never thought life could feel safe." Caleb's throat tightened, but he simply nodded. "You are safe." Then came the night that changed everything. The four of them finished dinner and stepped outside to enjoy the cool air. The moon was bright, round and glowing with a calm, silver light that painted the whole ranch in a magical quietness. The fields shimmered softly. The wind carried the scent of fresh soil and wild grass. The sisters stood together admiring the sky. Caleb leaned against the porch rail, watching them with gentle eyes. Ava turned first, her voice light. "This moon is beautiful." Lena nodded. "It feels like a blessing." Mara looked at Caleb. "It feels like the world is finally giving us peace." Caleb slowly walked toward them. For a moment, nobody spoke. The night wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Ava stepped closer, her smile soft. "We owe you everything, Caleb." "You don't owe me anything," he replied. Lena shook her head gently. "You gave us a chance to start living." Mara's voice trembled. "You gave us more than safety. You gave us respect, trust, kindness, things we had forgotten existed." Caleb looked at her softly. "I just did what anyone should do." "No," Mara said quietly. "Not everyone would." The sisters shared a look, one full of understanding, unity, and a decision they had reached together. Mara stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved us, Caleb, but you also became someone important to each of us." Eva nodded, smiling with gentle warmth. Lena looked at the ground shyly, her cheeks flushed. Caleb felt his heart lift slowly, like a soft sunrise. Eva spoke softly. "We're not just grateful. We—" She paused, searching for the right words. "We care for you." Lena finally met his eyes. "All three of us." Mara took a small breath and whispered the same words she had spoken the first night, but with a new meaning. "They're both my sisters, but our hearts feel the same." Caleb looked at the three young women standing under the moonlight, each different, each strong, each carrying a piece of the journey that led them here. He felt overwhelmed, humbled by their trust. He didn't step forward with boldness or claim anything with pride. Instead, he moved with quiet respect. He reached out his hand, gentle and steady. Mara placed hers in his. Lena followed with calm trust. Eva joined with a bright, hopeful smile. Under the soft moonlight, Caleb leaned forward and kissed each sister on the forehead. Mara first, then Lena, then Eva. The gesture wasn't bold or hurried. It was full of tenderness, respect, and gratitude. A promise, a connection. The sisters closed their eyes, each touched deeply by the quietness of the moment. No fear, no pressure, no uncertainty, only trust, only peace. The moon shone brightly above them, witnessing the bond that had been shaped through kindness, courage, and a shared hope for a better future. The ranch that once held only silence now held a new kind of family, unusual perhaps, but built on choice, respect, and the gentle truth that sometimes hearts find their way toward the same place. And from that night on, none of them were lonely again.